question about end behavior. So the example you had sent this polynomial function, and when we're interested in the end behavior, what we're talking about is the behavior of the graph at the ends, which means the right end of the graph and the left end of the graph. In between, it's doing all kinds of waves and things, but the end of it is asking what happens to the graph, what happens to the curve as x approaches positive infinity from the right, as it gets farther and farther and farther to the right, and on the other end, what happens as x is approaching negative infinity, which means it's getting farther and farther and farther to the left. And as we get very, very large numbers to the right or left, the only term in the polynomial that really matters is the first one. This is called the leading term. Because its power is higher than all the other ones, the more x gets closer to infinity, as it gets to a very, very, very large number, since it's being taken to the 8th power, it's going to start to dominate all these other terms. So as far as end behavior goes, this is the only thing we need to pay attention to. These other terms affect what happens in the middle, but not on the ends. And this is how it looks when it's written in mathematical notation. As x approaches positive infinity, f of x, which is the y, approaches what? And as x approaches negative infinity, the y approaches what? So this would be like the right-hand side of the graph, this first kind of phrase, and this would be the left, going to the left. Okay, so if we put a very large number in for x, we get 4, and I'm just going to put a plus sign here to indicate that this is a positive number to the 8th power. Any positive number to the 8th power is positive times a positive 4, f of x. So f of x is going to be positive. Okay, so it would approach, on the right, it would approach positive infinity. Okay, or be going up like this. Okay, on the left, we'd have 4. If we have a negative number, and I'm just putting a minus sign in there, it could be any number, a very large number, but I take it to the 8th power. If I multiply a negative number times itself an even number of times, that's a positive number. And if we multiply that times 4, which is positive, f of x is going to be positive again. So on the left, the curve's going to end up going up like this. So this was actually the answer to the one you gave, which I believe was A, choice A. You can go back and look at that, but let's look at the other 3 possibilities. So there's 4 possibilities altogether. This is one of them. You have a positive coefficient and an even power. What if we had a positive coefficient and an odd power? Suppose instead it was 4x to the negative 7. Well, if we put a positive number in for x, we'll have 4 times some positive number to the 7th power. Okay, f of x, the y value, positive number to the 7th power is positive, times a positive number is positive. So in this example, it'd be going this way. But what if we put a negative number in? 4 to a negative number to the 7th power. All right, a negative number to an odd power is negative. This is negative. Times 4 is going to be a negative number, so this is going to approach negative, so this is what your end behavior is going to look like. So that's possibility number 2. Possibility number 3 is if we have a negative coefficient, like 4, negative 4, x to the 8th. So if I put in a positive number, negative 4 times a positive to the 8th power, okay, the y value, positive to the 8th is positive, times a negative 4 is going to be negative. So if we had a graph, as x approaches positive infinity, the y would be going down. It'd be going to a negative. If I had negative 4 to a negative number to the 8th power, I'd have negative 4. A negative number to an even power is positive. But if I multiply it times negative 4, I'm going to get a negative. So in this case, they'll both be going down and down. Both be approaching negative infinity, both y's. And then the last possibility is if we have a negative coefficient but an odd power. If I put a positive number in for x and take it to the 7th power, the positive to a 7th is positive, but if I multiply it by -4, I'm going to get a negative. So on the right, it's going to be going down, but if I put in a negative number to the 7th power, negative number to the 7th power, a negative to a 7th power is negative, but then if I multiply that times another negative number, it's going to be positive. So as x approaches negative infinity, the y would be approaching positive infinity. So these are the 4 possibilities. This is how it looks in Khan Academy, and also when you just write it out mathematically. The right-hand side is asking what is the y doing as x approaches positive infinity. That's the right side of the graph. And the other side would be as x approaches negative infinity, what is the y doing as it approaches on the left side of the graph. Okay, hopefully that helps.